This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vossoughi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host Arash Vossoughi, and we are so thrilled to be back with you for another episode. And this time we are going to talk about raising your standard. So if you happen to listen to our very first episode, we gave a general introduction of what standard is and what we refer to as standard at Voss Coaching Co. We'll do a quick refresher, and then we're going to talk all about how to raise your standard and really get to the next level. So Arash, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mikey. How are you?
I'm doing great. And this is a topic that you love to talk about. So I want to give everybody a refresher. So for anyone who may not have heard the very first episode, let's quickly go into what is standard.
Standard, the simplest definition that I can give, it's our code of ethics of what we either consciously or unconsciously are holding to. And what happens, I believe standard is more important than goals. I think it's at the top of the list of most important things to develop consciously. And now I always say, you're going to achieve goals throughout your life. Short-term, long-term goals, big vision, if you stick to it. But standard is what gets you to your goal. And you can't develop anything without discipline. And your standard is never developed without discipline because you have to hold it. I watch people all the time drop their standard of living down to their current circumstance. It's very common. And they have it wrong. They want to bring their current circumstance up to the standard of living of how they want to be. But there's all these other standards that come before being able to do that. Your standard of your self-esteem, your standard of your circle. Are they complainers, or are you saying, no more, I'm only going to surround myself with people who are operating with the same mindset or greater than me? So standard is everything, but most people, it's not an important thing to them. And because they don't realize why standard is so important. And standard is so important because that's what creates our empowering beliefs. Weak standard, weak beliefs. Strong standard, strong beliefs. I watch people letting the market dictate their standards. Such a mistake, such an error. And it is the biggest error people make, because in the worst market, that's when the most self-made millionaires were created. And in the best market, certain people are not doing anything. So it does not matter the market, but most people do. I could tell you right now, over the next 3 to 5 years, your financial blueprint is going to be defined by your standard. And people want to get emotionally involved with building their standard and start out by writing, what is my standard? And then write, what is the standard I would love to have as part of my life? If I was the best version of myself, what would that standard be? And then you stay true to it, no matter what's happening on the outside. You do not drop it, no matter what. You've got to make that. That's why I say it's our code of ethics. It's a non-negotiable. No matter what, this is what I'm doing. And standard, I can go on for hours on this because it is so important. It's really what changed everything for me. Like if you go and look at standard, means you don't renegotiate with yourself. Constantly, I'm going to go work out first thing in the morning, and then you don't do it. I'm going to do my morning routine and you don't do it. Then you go, okay, I'll do it after I drop the kids off to school, or I'll do it after I have this meeting. No, you do not negotiate. That's dropping your standard. And what we have to understand is everyone has a standard, but most people don't go to it until they're pissed off enough of somebody wronged them. Nope, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm like, they draw a line in the sand. I want that line in the sand all the time. But standard isn't a mechanical thing either. It's something you're in the spirit of, where it's a part of your beingness, and you keep growing it by the different ways you are thinking and by the actions you take. Every greater action you take every defining decision you make is raising that standard.
Okay, you covered so much. I really want to dig into a few things. So first, you said that you believe standard is even more important than goals. And just a quick qualifier. So many people talk about how maybe only 3% of the population have a goal written down. Well, everybody has a standard. I would say less people than have a goal, like less than 3% of the people are aware what their standard is and have consciously set their standard. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree. I would agree with that. And if you study the most successful people, they all talk about standard. They all know it. And like for me, I discovered this along my growth from failure to success. And then I started deconstructing what I did. And, when I look back, everything came to standard. I remember I quit my corporate job. And not too long after, my wife was getting her master's and she was working at the same time. But I mean, they were like 14-hour days for her. And I told her, just quit your job. And it was so irrational, but I was always thinking about how I wanted to live. And I raised my standard in that moment. And she quit her job. She gave her 2 weeks. In that moment, everything started coming to us. And I know people are going to listen to that and say that's so illogical, for sure. Like I look back, it was so illogical, but it put me on the hook to keep growing. And I think growth, I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but to me, growth is very sacred. Like I constantly want to get better. I constantly want to continue to raise my standard. And I have, but I put a lot of energy on it and I put a lot of attention on it. So we can always walk into that new standard as we're building more confidence with ourselves, as we're seeing ourselves as the person we want to be. And that's why standard is so important.
I love the way that you explain that, Arash. And I want to make a differentiation for people here because we talk a lot about paradigms or programming, but that is not the same thing as standard. And so will you differentiate the two?
The paradigm is your belief system. It's 95% of our day is run by that program. Standard is really decision by decision that's part of your beingness. And so they're very different. You can only change your paradigm in 2 ways. You could change it through an emotional impact, something that just jolts you. Like 9/11 is a great example of an emotional impact. A loss of a loved one, emotional impact. Loss of a job, emotional impact. Or the best way to do it is spaced repetition mixed with really elite level coaching. So it's spaced over time. And that's how a program is rewritten. Standards happen almost immediately. Like literally immediately, you could change a standard where you just stand up for yourself, where you say, I'm not doing this anymore. Just like you can look at your life, Mikey. Everybody listening can look at their life. They have these defining moments where they chose into their life. Mine was when I didn't accept a job offer to stay at the same income level because I wanted to choose what could possibly be great over what I knew. See, if I would have chose what I knew, that's the paradigm, the program. I chose something else. I raised my standard right away. Even though the results did not show right away, that's when everything changed. And my philosophy changed literally overnight. And your philosophy is, when you change your philosophy, we have a philosophy towards everything. That is really the starting point of really building your standard. They work so hand in hand together. Your philosophy changes your way of thinking right away.
And so you also talked about, you don't negotiate with yourself and you have a level of discipline. Would you say that a level of discipline is a standard, but how else do discipline and standard work hand in hand?
Well, everything works with discipline. I think discipline is the number one success philosophy. Without discipline, you don't build an attitude. Without discipline, you don't stick to your goals. Without discipline, you can't build your standard because you've got to be, when it's easy to say, no, let me go back into comfort, you have to discipline yourself and say, no, this is my standard. And this is how you talk to yourself. You say, no, I'm not accepting anything lower than what I committed to. So it's like a personal contract to yourself that you are stepping up and standing tall to what you believe in. And then you anchor it with the action. When you anchor it by following through, that standard now is through your beingness. It's just a part of you. And that's why standard is so important. I watch people in the sales world, they'll come in and they price their products based on what everybody else is pricing, but they don't think what their standard of their product is. And that is how you should price it, based on what you think it's worth. Well, what do you think you're worth? And here's what we've got to understand. Worthiness is at the top of the list of your standard. If you have no worthiness and you don't work on building your worthiness, you're not going to build your standard. And you do that with discipline. And that's why they come so hand in hand together, hand in hand. I mean, I remember my wife and I bought a couch years ago, and they dropped it off. And I didn't know you couldn't return a couch after they drop it off. Anyway, I told her, I go, I'm going to look at this every day and it's going to drive me crazy because it's not what we like. It's just going to drive me crazy. And I said, she's like, we'll sell it. I said, don't sell it, give it away. I said, just give it away. We've already paid for it. Give it away because somebody would love this. So we gave it away. Well, that was my standard, and something like people are listening to it might sound so minuscule, but I have a standard towards everything. And you will always, once you hold to that standard, I promise you this, practice it and you'll see it for yourself. Your life is going to elevate and you're going to attract everything that's in harmony with that standard. That's why I think standard is so important. And I think it's more important than goals. And goals are so important to me. So when I say that, that is a huge statement from me because I don't think anything happens without goals, but you can't build a goal and achieve it without having a significant standard, having a significant level of confidence. And so we have to understand that we're worthy of it first. I was talking to a client today. I'm coaching her one-on-one. She's wonderful. I mean, I absolutely love her. We've had a massive breakthrough, and she said worthiness changed the game for me because she couldn't connect to it, like how to do it. And since that moment, I congratulate her. I love her so much. I really love working with her. Her name is Kim. And in that moment, Kim took a flight to Greece because she raised her standard. And she got connected to her. She goes, Arash, it's so illogical. I go, 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know you were going. She goes, you were just in my head talking about it. What she was really saying is, I started valuing me. And this is what I wanted to do. I raised my standard. I opened up my heart to what was possible. And I followed it, But any of us can do it if we're willing to hold to it. If we're willing to do that interior work. The interior work is so important because until you do the interior work, the exterior is not going to change. When you do it, everything changes.
Arash, I think everybody listening to this podcast episode is going to look at their standard and raise their standard. At least that's my hope. But what I know that you're really big on asking reflective questions. What are some reflective questions they could start asking themselves to discover where is my standard now and where do I want to move the bar?
Well, you want to first look at your results. It'll reflect the standard you've been accepting. Okay, right away. You look at the results, it'll tell you that. Like things it's the little things that build the standard. So have you not been paying attention to the little details? And then I would ask yourself at the end of the day, this question is, did my actions today reflect the standard I want to live? And then if the answer is no, say, where did I drop? And then look at why did I drop? So you can always go back in a day and be like, okay, this really drove me nuts and I just got lazy thinking. Well, why did you get lazy thinking? There's a reason. So you want to look at that and you're going to see, because that's going to turn into a behavior if you keep repeating that over time. So we want to catch it, and then we don't beat ourselves up. We say, okay, from this point on, starting right now, I'm making a defining decision that I am really never dropping there again. And that's the best way to do it.
Okay, so a goal we work towards. And a standard we can change immediately. But is a standard something that you set immediately, but then you have to reset every day until it becomes your new autopilot? Or how does the calibration of the new standard work?
All you have to do is make decisions from that standard, and then it's a part of you. And so a goal, we're working at the goal because we're coming from the goal. So the goal is like, how would I be behaving? What would I be experiencing had I achieved that goal? What are the 3 to 6 goal achieving activities that I do every day to achieve that goal? And if somebody tells me, because I have people who tell me, I can only do one goal achieving activity, I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. The goal is not important to you if you're only doing one. See, these goal achieving activities are vital, but when you have a standard, you won't do just one. And that's where standard is so important to understand. That's why I say it's more important than goals, because when you're in the spirit of your standard, you have this knowingness, you have this trust, and you have this faith that you know, even though if it doesn't show, that it's about to show. You're about to experience it with your 5 senses. And that's why we can never renegotiate with ourselves. Now, if you're going to renegotiate high, not renegotiate low. Most people renegotiate low. I want you to renegotiate high if you're going to do it. But make your goal achieving activities part of your standard as non-negotiables. And then watch what starts showing in your life.
I feel like standard is like the secret sauce that just makes everything, like elevates everything. I also want you to correlate standard with identity. So we've talked about identity before on the podcast. So you just kind of correlated it with discipline, with goals. I want to bring in identity. And how does standard and identity work together?
Well, standard builds your identity. When we drop, what do you think we're doing? We're dropping our identity. Every identity is the foundation. Your image or identity, same synonymous word, is your boundary to achievement. And I could tell you, the image you have on the inside right now is creating those results. But how was that image created? Usually it's from other people, through past experiences is where you build your image, okay? Now, when a person improves their image, I know they improve their standard. You can't improve your image without improving your standard. And your entire life will change. But standard is what builds that identity. And that's, when you get to a hard moment and you're like, I did hard really well. Your standard changed and your identity changed. Identity, the best way to change identity is with standard, because it makes it a visceral experience. Standard is an action. It's a verb to me. Okay. It is a verb with exclamation points. And that's how I think of standard, because it's doing. It's in the doing. It's in the authenticity of your code of ethics. That's what standard is.
Okay, so whenever you've fallen off the wagon and you got to get back on the wagon as far as working out and eating healthy, and it's hard to get back on that wagon, but after like 4 or 6 weeks, you start seeing results, and then you want more. You want to keep going because you feel good, you look good, you're seeing the results. With standard, does your standard gradually increase? Like if you were working out or eating healthy, right? You see results gradually. Or do you set a new standard, and then how often are you setting a new standard? Do you see what I'm asking? Is it gradually raising with your results, or are you consciously setting a new one every 30 days, 2 weeks, whatever?
Yeah. So I set it every day to improve it by 1%. And it could be in any area of my life. The 1% rule has been so magnified over the last several years. But people will ask me, well, what do you do with 1%? Well, this is what I do. I want to operate 1% more confident in what I'm doing. I want to serve 1% more. I want to work out 1% stronger. Even the days I don't want to work out, that's when my standard increases, because I do it anyway. Like I was at the gym last week and my trainer goes, "You look fried." I said, "I could do one more round." That's standard, because I always want to do more. And we have a thing with my trainer. He goes, "Well, try to do 8 reps." I go, we don't use the word try. You just tell me and I will do it. Even if you have to help me and it falls on me, but that's how you build standard. Like it builds toughness too. And you have to have toughness to win. I didn't say toughness is not being vulnerable. I said you have to build this mental toughness because you're going to deal with adversities throughout the year. There's 365 days. I promise you, if you're going after something worthy of you, you have to build toughness, because you will have to raise your game. And there's different things that we have in our tank that really get you to do it. Anyone who's ran a marathon or tried triathlon, they find this other version of themselves. Well, that other version is letting that standard come out, like non-negotiable. I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in. And that's what we have to understand. Like with let's say somebody wants to have a massive end of the year of their income. Let's just say they do. They have to hold to that standard and not go back and start negotiating saying, well, I've done better than last month. No, you say, this is what I'm committed to. And you never change your commitment until the date on the calendar changes. And that's what will hold the standard.
Arash, this is so good. I hope everybody that's not driving is actually taking notes, because this is one of the best episodes and one of the best times I've heard you talk about standard. I want to ask really quickly. So would you say, people are always asking, how do I get to my goal faster? How do I get the results faster? What can I do to speed up the process? Would you say standard is the best way to do that?
I'd say standard mixed with decision and discipline, because you can't hold the standard without discipline, and you don't start the standard without decision. And when I talk about decision, it's when you get in the spirit of it, it's already done. So and that's what you want to think about. It's already done. And those mixed together is how they're going to get to where they want to go at an exponential rate.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the action item for today's episode.
Well, what I would recommend is no holding back anymore. You let go completely, and you operate with the standard that you will really want as a part of your identity, that you really want a part of your beingness. So write out, what is my current standard? And what is the standard my big goal demands of me to grow into? And write those qualities out. Then start working on the first one. And it's always going to be never dropping. Like from this moment, if you need to listen to this 100 times, listen to it 200. Like listen to it, but do not drop. I promise you this. I've helped so many people with this. I will help you with this, and you're going to feel so damn good about yourself. And then leave this as part of your identity, that I am the standard of my industry. I have so developed my standard that I am the standard of my industry.
I love that. Okay. Thank you so much for another amazing episode. I hope that you all will leave us a rating and review and share this with your friends and family so that we can reach more people. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the 7-Figure Standard.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.